After catching my wife with her lover, I enacted swift retribution, vanished from the city. But that was only the beginning. Now the $50,000 is waiting to play its part in my new grand plan of revenge. Be me, 31 years old, living in a coastal town in Oregon. Been married to Elizabeth for 5 years now. Met her back in university days. First-year students got campus housing, more like a small village than dorms. Houses were split by gender, but area was mixed. Place became party central real quick. Grassy areas turned into permanent BBQ spots. That's where I first saw Elizabeth, was studying marine biology. She was doing international business with Spanish, started hanging out casually first year. Neither of us wanted anything serious then. Barely saw each other second year. Just random encounters at student bars. She spent third year on exchange in Portugal. Only got together for real when she came back for finals. Relationship lasted exactly 1 year. She graduated and started job hunting. I had another year to finish. Needed to focus on studies anyway. Graduated with highest honors. Specialized in exotic and large animal medicine. Got multiple job offers. Chose a clinic just outside city limits. They handled everything from farm animals to exotic pets. Run into Elizabeth at a horse show. She's running some corporate event. I'm there as guest of one of the horse owners. We set up a date. Things pick up from there. She's working at International Trading Company. Assistant to regional director. Handles client events and promotions. Also travels around Europe sometimes. Life has been pretty amazing since we got married. Both making good money. I've built solid reputation with exotic animals and horses. Found this old rundown farmhouse for sale. Had a couple of outbuildings too. Started renovating it. Planning to add extension for when kids come. Property surrounded by hedges and trees. Used to be bigger farm. Previous owners sold off most fields to nearby farmers. Here's the interesting part. Property had ancient agricultural restriction indeed. Had to work in agriculture to live there. Not enough land left to be proper farm. Place sat unsold forever. Lawyers decided veterinary work counted as agricultural. Got amazing deal because of that. Rural property with development potential. Price way below market thanks to my job. Our combined income let us travel a lot. Had some Spanish from high school. Elizabeth spoke fluent Spanish. Picked up German and Italian too. We explored most of Europe. Never thought she might be cheating. Had plenty of wealthy women clients. Their husbands thought horses kept them busy. Got propositioned enough times myself. Knew some married women weren't faithful. Wouldn't risk practice reputation though. Richard, my partner, trusted me when he brought me in. Was about to learn just how unfaithful some could be. Climbed the stairs quietly that day. Music from bedroom covered my footsteps. Pushed open the door. Fired once with my tranq gun. Hit her lover right in the rear. He yelled and jumped clear of my cheating witch. Broke the gun open. Reloaded quickly. Shot her too. Her lover tried to charge at me. Obviously wanted to beat me senseless. His movements just made sedative work faster. Started trembling. Collapsed to the floor. Elizabeth stared at Dart in her side. Watched her eyes change. First shock, then fear. Finally that dazed look as tranq took effect. Wasn't stupid enough to use my work gun. Used special dart gun for zoo animals. One I use when need to treat them. Went to garage. Got roll of duct tape. Returned to bedroom. Bound their wrists and ankles. Almost stuffed their underwear in mouths. Decided against it. Just taped them shut instead. Carried them both downstairs. Took them to cellar. Still naked. Cellar was old stone building. Thick walls kept it cold no matter the weather. Hadn't been cleaned since last used for animals. Had metal rings in walls. Used to tie beasts for milking back in day. Tied them to 2 of rings. Then had idea. Remembered something. When mom died, cleared her house. She'd taken care of my grandmother. Stored lot of medical supplies in shed. Still hadn't sorted through it all. Found some incontinence pants. Got 2 pairs. Released leg restraints. Put pants on both of them. Retaped their legs. Went back to house. Checked Gregory's pockets. Used his keys to check his car. When they'd wake up, they'd be sitting in old animal waste. Wrists tied to rings. Almost naked. Freezing cold. Meanwhile, I showered. Changed into clean clothes. Sat in comfortable chair. Had steaming cup of coffee. Nice warm sweater on. Shotgun across my lap. Day's work was done. Ripped tape off Elizabeth's face. Just what the hell do you think you were playing at? She tried acting brave. Could see real fear in her eyes, though. Held coffee to her mouth. She gulped it too fast. Burned her throat all the way down. You bastard, she gasped. So tell me about it. About what? She tried to bluster. How long has this been going on? How long has what been going on? Grabbed her by the hair. Reapplied the tape. I'll leave you to think about things for a while. When I come back, better be ready to tell me the truth. Had picked up a couple of really spicy curries on way home. Released only one hand for each of them. Set food and water beside them. Gave them each plastic spoon. Ripped tape off their faces. Both grabbed water cups, drained them instantly, took cups and filled them from outside tap, stood outside door, listened to their whispered conversation. Couldn't make out words. Didn't really matter. Their future pretty much sealed now. So was mine, I suppose. Finally understood those looks. The ones from William and Elizabeth. At last company event. Took you long enough, sneered Gregory. Turned shotgun toward him. You really think I'm scared of that? You haven't got the guts to shoot. He was wrong. Rock salt won't usually penetrate skin, but if you're close enough, it will. I was close enough. Put both barrels into his calf. He squealed. Reminded me of movie Deliverance. Wasn't planning to assault him that way, though might use double barrel if I did. Reloaded carefully. I love you, Elizabeth suddenly said. Had to do it to keep my job. Gregory was blackmailing me. You lying whore, screamed Gregory between gasps of pain. You've been screwing half the management to get where you are. Then to me. You better get me ambulance. Get me one now and I'll say nothing to police. Yeah, right, I thought. Put next 2 cartridges into his other calf. Reloaded again. You piece of shit, I'll see you in jail for that. Next 2 went into his thigh. He squealed again. Finally decided to shut up. Taped his mouth closed. So who all were you going to screw in Toronto? It was an exhibition. It was work. So what about flight tickets to Vancouver? I didn't know he was taking me there. Clothes she packed told different story. Look, obviously you've been lying to me forever. Don't even have respect to tell truth now. Going to pay for that? Seems to me you aren't expected back at office this week. Not expected in Toronto either. Have all week to decide what to do with you. Nobody's going to report you missing. Taped her mouth again. They looked at each other. Could see they finally realized. Had them in palm of my hand, just to reinforce that impression. Took the hose. Soaked them both thoroughly. Hadn't expected what happened next. Water-soaked animal waste they were sitting in. Started giving off strong smell. Mix of urine and manure. Left them to contemplate their short future. Sat down with cup of tea. Had to decide how to proceed. Pretty much burned my bridges. Shooting Gregory in legs with rock salt. Temptation to kill them both was strong. Going to end up in jail anyway. For using gun and false imprisonment. Wasn't about to spend more time locked up than necessary. Actually planning to avoid it long as possible. Plenty of missing people out there. Families still looking for them. Never find them. Took my video camera and gun. Went back to cellar. Lovebirds were shivering like crazy. Looking in their eyes. Could see real fear had set in. Set up camera. Took tape off Gregory's mouth. Elizabeth's eyes were pleading now. Ignored her completely. My arms, please, he begged. Need toilet, please? Well, Gregory, you've been messing with my wife. You expect me to be nice? Think you need to give me something. If you want any consideration from me, don't you? Anything, he said hopefully. Saw way out in his mind. Take the car or the yacht. I'll sign them over to you. Just tell me what you want. I'll give you anything. Had forgotten about his yacht. Pretty nice cabin cruiser, actually. Ideas started forming in my head. Half the management, you said. Still wanted to mess with their heads. Wanted to find out who else Elizabeth involved with. If I went off grid, might get chance at them too. What you said about her messing with half management, I want names. I can't. I'll lose my job. So you want to take their share of punishment? Have all week to persuade you. Not due back till Saturday. No one's going to miss you till then. Poked his leg wound. He winced in pain. Names. The toilet. I need the toilet. You have incontinence pants on. You'll get toilet when I'm satisfied. What about Elizabeth? She'll need it too. Who cares about gallantry? I laughed. Let me make this clear. She's the one who betrayed me. You're just collateral damage. Really don't care about you. You know where messing with me got you so far? Still have all your limbs. Can still walk away from this. But if you go to police, things will get worse for you. Might go to prison, but I'll get out. Sounded more confident than felt. Please, the cramps are killing me. Taped his mouth again. I'll let you think about it for a while more. Made show of leaving. However, untied their arms from rings first. Offered no resistance, as tied them behind their backs. Laid them flat on ground. Went back into house. Started collecting things for departure. Gregory's offer of yacht gave me idea. Remembered something important? Parents were on holiday in Ireland when I was born. Mom went into premature labor. Was touch and go if I'd survive. They registered my birth in Ireland. Got re-registered when brought home. Still had Irish birth certificate though. Gathered all personal documents. Some clothes, euros Elizabeth and Gregory had drawn for Toronto trip. Threw in my stamp collection too. Tomorrow would hit bank. Get special collection from safety deposit box. House was mortgaged to limit. Put all savings into property. Heavily mortgaged. Needed both incomes to finance it. Plan had been to stretch ourselves while young. Expected pay raises and house price increases. Would take care of future. Elizabeth knew about stamps, thought it was childish hobby, put no value on it. I knew differently. Slept fitfully that night. Called in sick to clinic next morning. Lovers clearly hadn't slept at all. Different odor in cellar now. Spicy curry had done its work. Tied one hand of each to rings. Let them eat breakfast. Gave them bran flakes and whole wheat bread. Added laxative to spread. Put it in tea too. Determined to make them sit in own filth. Making it pass through gut quickly. Meant stomach acids wouldn't neutralize properly. Going to have world's worst case of diaper rash. Just had to make sure it didn't turn into sepsis. Judging by their squirming. Skin on their parts already stinging. Elizabeth tried talking to me. Please let me go to bathroom. Need to clean myself. I'm stinging. As far as I'm concerned, my darling wife, you can sit in your filth. Your cheating friend can rot away. What you're getting is trench foot of the rear. Technical name is immersion injury. Troops in trenches got it. Couldn't dry their feet. If goes on too long, your skin will rot away. Only way to fix is cut it away. Gregory will lose his tool and balls. You'll wind up having your cheating parts cut out. Both be using plastic pouches rest of your lives. My smile had no warmth. Shock on their faces showed, was getting into their heads. If you tell me what I want soon enough, might not have to rely on memory for your sex life. Wasn't entirely sure if was lying. Separated them this time. Put ear defenders I use for shooting on Elizabeth. Taped them in place. Set up camera again. Okay, Gregory, where are yacht keys? His face glowed with hope. On my key ring? Keys for my condo there too. Got safe and wardrobe. 20 grand in it. Keys on ring too. Take it all. Just let me get cleaned up. I'll be out of your life. Won't go to police, honestly. Don't you just love it when arrogant prick starts begging? Filed information for future reference, though. Where's the yacht? Marina slip 20, right at end of jetty. Okay, I'll think about it. While I'm thinking, you're going to tell me and my little electronic friend here, pointed to camera, all about my cheating wife. Who she's been screwing, when and where. Also going to tell me who you've been boasting to about her. Just so you know, she'll be doing same shortly. So don't leave anything out. He started his confession. Was little surprised it had been going year. Also surprised it wasn't longer. Had braced myself to find she'd been unfaithful. Entire time at company. Hoped it was recent thing. Started at Chicago Expo last year. Last night, management went out to dinner. Guys were all going to strip club. Was going to get Elizabeth and Sophia from Boston office taxi back to hotel. But they said wanted to see what strip club thing was about. Got little drunk. Peter bought them lap dance. Seemed embarrassed at first, but got into it. Then Elizabeth said she could do better. Went downhill from there. She and Sophia tried to dance, but management wouldn't have it. Got a bit more drunk. Headed back to hotel. Peter had sweet and Elizabeth and Sophia decided they'd give us dance. Because got us nearly thrown out of club. I mean, come on. What would you do? They're both attractive. No way any of us turning down dance. Looked at me like naughty puppy. Knew it had done wrong. Was so pathetic, almost laughed. Go on. Well, you know how it goes. No, actually. How does wife start cheating on husband? Any sympathy evaporated. Well, they started stripping. Got bit competitive. Elizabeth unzipped Kyle's pants. Started rubbing herself on him. Still had underwear on. But Sophia got Peter ready. Sort of moved her pants aside. Started rubbing on him. Elizabeth dropped her pants. Started screwing Kyle. Wound up that 6 of us screwed both of them. After that, got together every expo. Girl from Paris branch joined in. One from Munich office too. 6 months ago. At least he had decency to look ashamed. Names. Well, me obviously. Kyle Thompson and Peter White from Boston office. Harold Fisher from Munich. And Christian Lambert from Paris branch. Gregory wouldn't meet my eyes. Richard Matthews, he mumbled. Matthews was UK manager of their company. Was arrogant, thieving, dishonest scumbag. Also worth fortune. When his wife found out he was playing around, she divorced him. But he used money and contacts. Left poor woman virtually destitute. Made sure she was refused legal aid. Lawyer she could afford was outgunned. Should have realized soon as Gregory mentioned. Whole thing started at Expo. That scumbag never missed freebie. Who were women? Well, Sophia Gardner, Lisa Dumont, Emily Weber, and Marie Becker. They're all married too. Got him to run through everything he could remember. Recorded it all. Made me sick. Although company executives used women, according to him, they had instigated events, were more than willing participants. Once he finished, had no stomach to listen to Elizabeth's version. Nevertheless, needed her version. Was vacillating between options, wreaking more vengeance on both of them or releasing them. Taking chances they wouldn't go to police. Took camera to Elizabeth. Now I want truth out of you. Have heard what Gregory had to say. What happens to you both depends on what you tell me. Her tale pretty much same as Gregory's. except missed out occasion. When she was with Gregory and Richard, screwing Matthews when she was at home. Just bit of fun. Those trips can be so boring. Just wanted something to do at night. Wasn't like I was hurting you. Since I wasn't at home anyway, she pleaded. You really don't know much about male species. Those scumbags were looking down their noses at sucker whose wife was giving it away to anyone who wanted it. While I was keeping faith with lying, cheating witch, rage was growing again. They were really going to suffer for this. Had lost reason. Wasn't thinking of consequences. But then suppose she hadn't been either. Better have enjoyed it. Because your sex life is going to be memories from now on, honey. Dragged her back to Gregory. Fury burning in my gut. Please, please let us get these things off. Get cleaned up. My backside is sore. Let us get cleaned. Won't say anything to police, begged Gregory. I'm thirsty, pleaded Elizabeth. Can I have some water? Just let us stand up. Move about bit. For God's sake. My muscles are aching. Knew enough psychology. They needed some hope. See me as potential benefactor, if was going to control them. Slit tape on their legs. Left wrist bound. Needed help to get to feet. Both screamed as blood flow returned. Gently flexed and bent. To release agony of cramps, both tried removing plastic pants. That were retaining little chemical factory, slowly digesting their flesh. I warned. For God's sake. If I get infection, we'll never be able to have children, said Elizabeth. I will be able to, probably just as well. You don't think your cheating genes should be passed on, darling. Her attempt to kick me would have been pathetic. If hadn't been so comical, could barely move, when swung legs. Lost balance, tumbled to floor. Unable to use hands to save herself. Got mouthful of waste for her trouble. Gregory tried making for door. Gentle push was all needed. Send him horizontal too. Really shouldn't have done that. Said as drove them back to Bonds. Was nice to you. Let you stretch. You got all violent with me. Said you wouldn't tell police. Yet tried to escape. Wonder where thought you were going to go. Seems still can't trust you. Haven't learned lesson, have you? Reapplied their gags. Just for meanness. Turned hose on them again. Left both sobbing. Went back into house. Started formulating plan. Had 3 or 4 days before they might be missed. Couple more before any alarm bells would ring. Hell, given their activity seemed little short of public knowledge. People might think they ran off together. Although couldn't really take that chance. Looked at what had gathered together. Was enough to give me start. Could go to Ireland. Use birth certificate to establish new identity. Disappear completely. Figured best way to fade from view. Use cash and public transport much as possible. Would have to avoid stations and ports when could. Britain is CCTV camera center of world. Fired up Gregory's laptop. Plotted bus route to Liverpool. Figured it was busier of terminals. Took me into Dublin. Could disappear into bigger crowd. Dublin would have routes to more of Ireland than Waterford. Decided to start moving right away. Allow trail to go cold. Needed to make sure they wouldn't die. Before they were found. Rule of 3 says you can survive. 3 minutes without air. 3 days without water. 3 weeks without food. Returned to cellar with water. Allowed them to drink. Had laced it with sedative. Once they were out, set up couple of intravenous giving sets. With saline drips. Connected all bags of fluid into drip control. Reckoned 5 liters should get them through next few days. Left incontinence pants soaked. To prevent infection. Dosed drips with antibiotics. Okay, it was animal antibiotic. But I'm vet. Just worked it out by body mass. Was tempted to wait till they came around. From sedative, have another little gloat, but was pretty deep in mess. So resisted. Just before left, had another idea? Added more sedative to drips. Would keep them disoriented while longer. Removed tape from mouths, so they wouldn't choke. Having checked their bonds. Locked place up. Loading my gear into his car. Headed over to Gregory's. If you look sufficiently confident, no one notices you. Simply walked up to his door. Made sure he didn't have alarm system. Used his key to enter. Found safe. Took money. Left immediately. Resisted temptation to search for anything linked to wife's betrayal. After all, had his laptop and video recording. Drove to piece of wasteland, less than salubrious part of town. Used his free car park. Left keys on center console tray. Door obviously improperly closed. Taking my backpack and grip. Simply walked away. By time got to Ireland, car would be stripped. Parts on way to Kuwait or Balkans. Being right-hand drive British luxury cars tend to be stripped for parts, rather than sold complete. Also easier to smuggle them that way. Then went to Marina. Again brazenly walked along jetty. Got onto yacht. Fired up engine. Cast off, sailed around coast little. Until found small cove. Took yacht in. Unloaded my backpack. The grip containing passport. Part of stamp collection. About 10,000 left on board. along with couple empty whiskey bottles. Then plotted course for Rome, pointed her south, sent her on way. She would sail till ran out of fuel. Had no idea how far that would be. Hitching pack onto back. Headed inland to bus, using planned route. Made way to Liverpool. Their bought foot passenger returned to Dublin. Arriving in Dublin, decided would take walking holiday. Explore land of my birth. First bus heading to Kilkenny. So that's where went. 3 days into extended holiday. Sitting outside pub, overlooking Atlantic. Noticed mobile phone lying under vacant table. Lifted it. Found cyber cafe. Did search for telephone number. What had been my local police force. Used mobile to report people. Trying break into house. Gave address of my former home. Operator tried keep me online. Get more details. But hung up. Wiped down phone. Dumped it in litter bin. Month later, decided to rent place in Cork. Started looking for job. Started calling myself Liam O'Brien. Irish form of my name, William Cooper. A lot of Irish people changed names to Gaelic form. Not unusual. Allowed me use birth certificate without any questions asked. Walking tour had trimmed fat off belly. Had allowed hair and beard grow. Since beard quite ginger, changed hair color too. Was determined to disappear. Having a dress meant could apply for passport and driving license. Now had complete legal Irish identity. All new photographs. Having shed weight, decided to keep it off. Started running. Found gym. Chose Cork for a number of reasons. Not least that was university town, with a lot of high-tech industries. Many of them pharmaceutical. If couldn't get veterinary job, could get one with them. Applied for a number of jobs. Got one with company. Did a lot of research in animal drugs. All really interested in was income. Still had decent bit of cash, but running out fast. Now paying rent, had taken opportunity. Go through Gregory's computer. Was quite bit of information about global tech company they all worked for. There were profiles on Thompson, White, Fisher, and Lambert. They were all regional directors. Elizabeth was playing with big boys. Gregory was British sales manager. Used couple internet cafes. To research them, couldn't get anything more than few addresses. Couldn't be sure they were right ones. For individuals concerned, all could potentially use were company email addresses, found file of passwords, but it was protected. Had little to do in evening, so spent time trying usual simple codes. Mother's maiden name, birth dates, and so on. No luck. Then opened his pictures file. Amongst photos was one. Labeled, my first car, clearly showed number plate. Tried that. Lo and behold, password file opened. Very kindly, he had labeled every password, including his bank account. Was tempted to empty it, but thought doing so might draw too much attention. What really provoked me, though, were photos he had of number of parties they had held. Further probing revealed video clips. At first didn't have stomach to view all photos and videos. After few more weeks of anger and jealousy gnawing at my stomach, decided way to get revenge against rest of scumbags was to use those photos and videos. Had to review them to select best ones. Noticed in some of them, Elizabeth was smoking, knew she didn't use tobacco, so was guessing she had habit. I didn't know about either that or something else. First, though, had to find out if was person of interest to police. Hadn't attracted any interest from Gardaí. Was fairly confident any search focusing on William Cooper would not throw up Liam O'Brien. Nearest English pronunciation would be O'Brien. Nevertheless decided discreet search of newspapers might be in order. Was getting rather paranoid about revealing whereabouts. Didn't think attempts to conceal movements were foolproof, but longer stayed free. More realized could have another life. What found just made things more complicated. I was dead. Well, anyway, had been presumed dead. After yacht had been found, reports didn't say much about Elizabeth and Gregory, except they had been found tied up after reports of break-in had required extensive medical treatment. For their injuries, report about recovery of yacht appeared just 2 weeks ago, 2 months after discovered wife's infidelity. Had been recovered by Italian fishermen who had claimed salvage rights. Report said I had stolen vessel, must have fallen overboard, was linked to incident at my house, suggesting had tried to disappear after faking break-in, perished when yacht ran out of fuel, so was free and clear to live as Liam, but plans to use photos and videos. Might reveal was alive, had intended to use email address book from Global Tech, send pictures to every member of staff. In every branch, Italian fishermen, that was it, could speak Italian, was in European Union, had direct flights from Cork and Dublin, could go to Italy, send emails from there, checked airports, could fly out Friday evening, return Sunday, wouldn't even have to take time off work. Flew out following Friday, paranoid as ever, wore sunglasses and Panama hat through airports, not relying purely on beard and hair. Arriving in Rome, Went straight to hotel, hit the sack, had 2 laptops with me, mine and Gregory's. First thing Saturday, went into town looking for unsecured wireless link. Wasn't hard to find, more in hope than anger. Pulled Gregory's computer from backpack, fired it up. Was surprised when it connected. Second machine wasn't needed. Would have expected him cancel internet account. If hadn't canceled that, maybe could still access his internet. Dug out list of passwords. And I was in that provided another little detour. An electronic trail. Address book was split into separate national branches, so sent different messages and attachments. There were, however, photographs of all players. Sent to each branch, had prepared messages beforehand. So didn't take long to send them? Once done, took stroll through Rome. In late autumn sun, resolved to do bit more traveling. Once dust had settled, lunched on pasta and fairly rough red wine, before returning to small backstreet hotel, chosen because less likely to have security cameras. There I took hard drive from Gregory's computer, packed it away, in case came up with future use for data, slept for couple hours, then went to Villa Borghese, park in heart of Rome, followed paths till found deep-looking pond, threw computer in before heading to Piazza Navona to sample famous Rome nightlife. By 3 o'clock in morning had enough, town still alive with revelers, but was coming down from adrenaline high. Returned to hotel, for few hours sleep, before catching plane home. For next year worked for pharmaceutical company. Cork is lively town, with young population, social life that goes along with it. Wasn't short of female company, but was reticent about commitment, while was content with job. Still want to get back into veterinary practice. So was on lookout for position. One evening while looking through newspaper, spotted opportunity. Practice was up for sale. Next morning made appointment to visit. Turned out Principal Connor Murphy was getting on in years. Although looked good 10 years younger than 70, he claimed, despite fact my accent. Had picked up more Irish tone over year. He picked me out immediately as English. He subtly gave me 3rd degree. Told him how I'd been in practice in England, but wife and I separated when she found life of country vet less exciting than she prepared to accept. Told him since had no family. Had spent few months traveling, while decided what to do. Wound up in Cork. Liked place, took first job that came along. While found my feet again, he could tell there was more to it, but was true enough that he saw pain. He referred me to his accountant, so could look over books, but could already tell. Was sound enough business, right for growth. Basically, he was looking after neighbors' animals. Hadn't taken on any new business for years. To raise money, was going to have to sell stamp collection. When I say my collection, core of it was really grandfathers and fathers. That's where value lay. Took it to Bank of Ireland in Dublin initially. Appraiser thought it was just another boring collection. He valued it at about 10,000 euros, which I thought was low. Then showed him part of collection. Had kept in bank. May I ask where you got these? Some were collected by grandfather, some by father and some by me. British album contained examples of every British stamp up to time I had left England. Amongst collection was set of 2 unseparated penny blacks that I had bought, another penny black, 2 penny reds, 2 penny blues, 1 perforated and 1 imperforate. Empire album was not as complete, but contained full set of Highland Island stamps. European album was quite extensive, had complete set from Third Reich Germany. Grandfather had been stationed in Germany. After Second World War, he had bought many collections from Germans who needed money to survive. These had formed core of collection. Albums I had left on yacht were virtually worthless modern stamps. Supposed Italian fishermen had kept them. Well, Mr. O'Brien, I think you should take these albums to our main philatelic department in London for valuation. There is major auction in 3 months' time. So if you are of mind to sell, would be good time to get them cataloged. As it is, I would estimate value of at least €250,000. I'll do that then. Thank you. This posed problem. If was to buy veterinary practice, needed money from sale, looked like couldn't get it for at least 3 months. Returned to Cork. Paid another visit to Connor. Mr. Murphy, I'm afraid need to sell stamp collection to raise money to buy practice. Auction won't be for about 3 months. Well, perhaps I can make proposal to you. How about you work with me for those 3 months? We can see how you get on with my clients. Then you can decide then whether you still want to buy. And so it was decided. Whilst fairly sure police were not looking for me, used bus and train to get to London. Simply got on bus, which took me to ferry. Then another bus straight into London. Bank agreed to catalog collection for sale. Would notify me of how they would divide lots. Could make reserves based on their valuations. Month later was advised of estimated value of £500,000 sterling. 2 months later was £900,000 richer. after commission and fees. During those 3 months, had worked with Connor, had established myself as member of community. Work was mainly with large animals and farm dogs. Connor, however, also ran small holding, raising beef and lamb to augment his income. He intended farm was part of sale, so also learned to raise, buy and sell animals. When money from sale of stamps was transferred to my account, paid Connor for business. He went into hard-earned retirement. I became part-time farmer and full-time vet. Worked hard at practice, built up strong client base. My reputation grew. Found was getting a lot of small animal work too. Opened surgery in town. Soon employed another vet, 2 veterinary nurses, and receptionist. Was still able to have social life. Despite Ireland being Catholic country, there were a surprising number of women whose marriages had failed, were living separated lives. There were also a number of women who had never married, was never short of companion. Then one day, life as she does, threw curveball, was in surgery, when in rushed Shannon O'Connor, not real one of course, but carbon copy, had knocked down dog, rushed into office looking for help, went out to her car, lifted animal from boot, blood leaking from both ends. Knew poor beast was not going make it. Also knew her owner, more particularly her daughter, would be distraught. X-rayed the dog, too many broken ribs, fractured skull, broken back, meant she had to be put to sleep. Right there and then, cleaned her up, laid her in blanket, making her look much as if she were asleep. Loaded her into back of my car, took her to her owner. All this time, Shannon O'Connor had waited. Don't think dogs' owners would be any more distraught, she insisted. Came with me, knocked on door. Mrs. Keegan, I'm afraid Lucy was knocked down. She was very badly injured. I had to put her to sleep. Oh, Liam, you didn't. Could you not have saved her? Mrs. Keegan asked amidst tears. I'm really sorry, Mrs. Keegan. I really couldn't. Lady who hit her brought her straight to surgery. But there was absolutely nothing I could do. Lucy is in car. Thought you would want to bury her yourself. Oh, yes. Wouldn't want anything else. Another thing is, lady who hit Lucy is with me. She is upset too. Wanted to explain what happened. If you don't want to see her, I'll bring Lucy in, so you don't have to meet her. If she brought Lucy to you and wanted to speak to me, she must be good person. I'll speak to her. Mrs. Keegan accompanied me to car. My passenger got out. Mrs. Keegan, I'm afraid I don't know your name. Shannon O'Connor, Mrs. Keegan. I'm so sorry. I just couldn't avoid Lucy, Shannon explained. If there is any damage to your car, let me know and I'll get it fixed. Oh, I couldn't do that. I want to get another dog for you. If you'll let me, I'll just take Lucy inside, said as I lifted her. Her bed is in kitchen. If you would just put her in that, I'll explain to Molly when she comes home from school. Left women talking. Arranged Lucy in her basket. Returned to car. Explained would have to get back to surgery. How much do I owe you? Forget it. Wouldn't charge for that. At least let me buy you dinner then. Should married woman be seen buying me dinner? I doubt very much if my husband would care, even if I knew where he was. Well, in that case, gave her my card. Phoned me. That Friday night phoned. Dinner was booked in Cork for Saturday evening. Dressed in my best, met her at restaurant. Over dinner discovered that she or her husband had left her. She didn't go into details. I didn't press her. Told her that I had caught my wife with another man and left her. Neither of us was divorced. After dinner, went to club. Danced little. Parting at midnight. Felt that wanted to get to know her better. But now had to face stark reality of my situation. Was still married. Even if was presumed dead. Felt wanted to develop relationship with Shannon. If was going to do so, would have to resolve my past. Hell, was getting ahead of myself. Maybe she wasn't interested. She phoned following Thursday. I decided if you weren't going to phone me, I would have to phone you. I don't have your number. Oh, I didn't think. Shall I pick you up tomorrow evening? That would be nice. Around 8? Fine. Where? She gave me her address. Picked her up. We went dancing again. When dropped her off. Arranged to pick her up again Sunday afternoon. We went to beach. Strolled along sand. Just getting to know one another. This set pattern for next few months. Then one Friday, my offer of dinner was turned down. I'll make dinner tonight, she said. Over meal, she asked. Why was moving so slowly? We're both grown-ups. We've both been married. It's just complicated. Neither of us is free. We're both still technically married. So you're saying you see this as long-term relationship? Well, I suppose I am. And if we were both divorced? Well, there's thing, I can never be divorced. Why ever not? You're English, aren't you? Divorce is straightforward in England. I stood up. Look, it really is very complicated. I need to think some things through. Before we take this any further, I'd better go. I'll phone you. Didn't phone that weekend. Did some solitary walking over cliffs, trying to work out what would tell her. Darkness of my actions had come back to haunt me. Was still prisoner of wife's infidelity. Needed to find out what happened to Elizabeth. To do that risked going to prison. Phoned Shannon Monday morning, before she went to work. Arranged to see her that night. Arrived at her door at 8 o'clock. We sat in her lounge. Would you like drink? Tea would be good. I procrastinated. Well, Liam was nothing for it. If wanted to move on, had to bury ghosts. Told her truth. Well, some of it, I came home. Found my wife screwing her boss. Threatened them with gun. Dragged them out to barn. Tied them up. Stole her lover's money, car and yacht. Engineered my disappearance. Adopted new identity. Oh my God. How have you been able to carry that with you for so long? I'm going to need time to understand how I feel about all this. Liam, I think you better go. I need time. I left. Part of me felt better for confession. Part of me felt it was time to run again. Why the hell could I tell her so much? What made me think could trust her? 2 days later, she was on my doorstep. Well, aren't you going to invite me in? Sorry, come in. Drink? Coffee, please. We sat on either side of kitchen table. I think you need to resolve your issues. If we're going to have chance to take things further, Liam, I know Shannon, I just don't know how to deal with mess I've made. Well, I think I have solution. My Uncle Patrick has legal practice in Liverpool. I think you should talk with him. I don't see how he can help. Uncle Patrick does a lot of work, tracing kids who run away to England. He uses investigators all over England. He might be able to trace your wife, find out where you stand with police. It's worth try, I suppose. Good. He'll be here tomorrow. Do you fish? I have done. Right, he likes to fish River Shannon. Should let you tell him your story. He might be able to tell you what he can do. Well, young man, have you €1 on you? Yeah. He held out his hand. I counted money out. Right, you have hired me, so everything is covered by legal privilege. Tell me everything, including bits you didn't tell Shannon. So I did, including Italian trip. Jesus, Boyle, you dug yourself some hole. Right, I'll go back, do bit of investigating. Won't be cheap, but will be worth it. Shannon and I were still going out, to dinner and dancing, but we had unspoken agreement. We're slowing things, until we had some news from Uncle Patrick. 6 weeks after our conversation, he arrived back in Cork, called into surgery. Can you take some time off, Liam? Yes, sure. Arranged with receptionist Aileen to get Kevin to cover. Shall we head up to farm? Sounds good. We took our coffee into sitting room. Patrick gave me report. That is comprehensive account of what happened to your wife. After you left, it is only copy there is. Read it thoroughly. Phone me tomorrow evening. I'm staying with Shannon, but I'll be fishing during day. He finished his coffee. We shook hands. He left. I weighed report in my hand, anxious to know what it said, afraid of what it might mean. Police had responded to my phone call to find Elizabeth and Gregory. Squirming in agony, they called ambulance. Lovers were treated for severe immersion injury, compounded by action of diarrhea. Hadn't suffered lasting damage, but took some time for their skin to heal. Neither Gregory nor Elizabeth made complaint, which meant police hadn't laid charges. Emails to their company, on the other hand, had set cat among pigeons. American company was in negotiations with Global Tech to buy them out. One of email addresses I had sent photos to happened to be member of buyout team. When Americans got emails, started to get cold feet. European employers were not as concerned about private lives of their employees as U.S. companies were. There is not same precedent for claims against businesses for sexual misconduct by staff. Nevertheless, they were wary of action being brought in courts. In their country, Europeans investigated culprits, promptly terminated their employment. Matthews was furious, blamed Gregory and Elizabeth. When he lost his job, Gregory's wife Natalie threw him out of house with nowhere to go. He moved into my house with Elizabeth. While clearing his possessions, Natalie found some drugs. These she handed into police, who arrested and charged him. This led police to search my house, where they found more. Inquiries of Italian police revealed they had also found drugs on his yacht. He claimed that he was holding them for Matthews and claimed that they used yacht to smuggle drugs from continent, but only for their personal use. Unfortunately for them, quantities were sufficient for charges of dealing to be laid. Link with major regional employer had given local journalists chance to make bit of name for themselves, so they had covered it. In more depth than nationals, police investigated European connection. Thompson, White, Fisher, and Lambert were hauled in by their respective police agencies. Investigations led to charges of sex and drug trafficking linked to Eastern Europe, with sentences ranging from 10 to 15 years. Matthews turned out to be even nastier piece of work than I had realized. He had Elizabeth and Gregory abducted. They were taken to unoccupied warehouse. But fortunately for them, police had it under surveillance and immediately called in reinforcements to raid premises. Police weren't quite quick enough to save Gregory from severe beating, but Elizabeth had only received broken nose and cheekbone when rescued. Gregory, Elizabeth, and Matthews were tried on a variety of charges. Gregory went down for 10 years. On drugs charges, Matthews got 20-year stretch, had his property and bank account seized by Assets Recovery Branch of Serious Organized Crime Agency. Elizabeth got off with suspended sentence. She tried to get me declared officially dead, using newspaper reports I had seen to back claim, so she could sell house and claim my life insurance. Case dragged on. Loss adjusters disputed claim. Eventually, bank foreclosed on mortgage. She lost house. With no income, she couldn't pursue case. Wound up working in supermarket as shelf stacker and checkout girl. There she met widower, who managed to date her, eventually proposing with all newspaper coverage. Only way for her to grab him, and doubtless more importantly his money, was to get rid of me. Upshot of that was, Elizabeth divorced me for abandonment. I was free agent. Next morning, phoned Shannon, arranged to meet her for lunch. Was waiting for her. Her face was mix of anticipation and anxiety. Well, your uncle gave me this, handed her report. I want you to read it before we make any decisions. Are you sure? As sure as I am of anything. If you and I are to have any sort of future, I need you to know truth. I've lived under shadow for too long. I want to be able to walk in sun with you. No secrets. I'll take this home. I'll call you later. Spent afternoon on tenterhooks. Call came at 7 o'clock. Liam, can you come to house? Uncle Patrick is here. We can think about what we do now. Was in car and flash. Seated on patio, toyed with my coffee anxiously. Patrick spoke. As I see it, you cannot marry. My heart sank until that moment. Don't think I realized how much I loved and wanted to marry Shannon. For at least 18 months? What? I was thoroughly confused. Shannon cannot get divorced. For another 18 months. I thought you couldn't get divorced in Ireland. You are behind times, Liam. Or do you prefer William? Divorce has been available in Ireland for nearly 10 years. Shannon and her husband have been separated for 2.5 years, but law requires they've been apart for 4 years. You can't get married until then. That explained a lot. I looked at Shannon. What do you say? We have 18 months to wait. I haven't asked you to marry me. You will, she smiled. Shannon doesn't know about conversation. Patrick and I had, day after she told me I would ask her to marry, he wanted to make sure I wouldn't harm his only niece. I assured him I had grown, that I had no intention of putting myself in such position ever again. I may not have been in jail, but I wasn't free. He gave me that freedom, and I am never going to sacrifice that freedom again. We married 2 years later. I'm still known as Liam. Much easier than explaining to all my new friends and clients. Shannon and I live on farm, but now I rent out land. Freedom to travel and see world with such beautiful partner is too precious to tie myself to property, and she doesn't want me leaving our bed at dawn.